Hi guys, so it's that time of year again. The Christmas or holiday season is fast approaching. Many of you, I'm sure, will be buying gifts for your friends and family regardless of whether you celebrate Christmas or not. So I am back, of course, with my annual Bookish gift guide for the book lovers in your life. A lot of the gifts in this video are books that I think would make beautiful gifts. Lots of books that came out this year, so they're less likely to perhaps have gotten their hands on, although a few are new discoveries of mine that came out a few years ago, as well as a few bookish gifts if you're not necessarily looking to buy a specific book for your book lover. But without further ado, I know why you're here is to see some gorgeous books that you might be able to buy for those you love or even yourself. So let's get into them, shall we? So it's really hard to know where to start, and I'm going to go for the one that's right in front of me, as I think it's a lovely gift for somebody you know enjoys classics or has a favourite classic or is just looking to read a few more classics, and those are the new Oxford Classics editions of some of your favourite classics. So Oxford have brought out a whole range of these books with these beautiful naked hardback cloth-bound covers with very simple text designs on the front. This is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen, but there is a wide range of books in this series, from the classic horror of Arthur Machen to the love stories of Jane Austen and the Russian classics. It is the 100th year anniversary of the Russian Revolution, so I know everyone's after their Russian literature at the moment. And I just think if you know somebody who loves a beautiful cover, who enjoys a classic, who is trying to build their classic collection or just likes to collect editions of their favourite classic, then this is the perfect new range to check out this year. But whilst we're on the topic of beautiful new editions of favourite books, I'm sure you all saw this coming, I have to mention the new illustrated edition of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. For the past 3 years, Bloomsbury have brought out a beautiful illustrated edition of the first 3 Harry Potter books, and this is the latest in that series, with the rest of the books to come out in the future. I think this book is something that is particularly good for gifting because, as it's a book lots of people already have read and loved, they might not be as inclined to spend the money on themselves buying a new hardback illustrated edition, and I just think unwrapping this on whatever day you're celebrating is going to put an absolute beaming smile on the face of whoever you buy it for. It is absolutely gorgeous outside and in. Here's one of the illustrations of Buckbeak and his fellow hippogriffs, but it's absolutely littered with illustrations covering different amounts of paper. I just absolutely adore this, and any Harry Potter fan is going to be absolutely thrilled to have a copy of this on Christmas. And on that topic, Bloomsbury have actually brought out a couple of different Harry Potter books this year that I think would make really nice gifting items that I don't have copies of, but I wanted to briefly mention. There's Harry Potter, A History of Magic, the book of the exhibition, which again is a beautiful big hardback, much like this book here, and details all of the different things that are currently viewable in the British Library Harry Potter exhibition, as well as loads of stories about the history of magic and behind the scenes of the creation of Harry Potter. And equally, a slightly less expensive and hefty book is Harry Potter, A Journey Through the History of Magic, which is a paperback of a little bit smaller size that does a similar thing and details a lot of the background of the Harry Potter universe and J.K. Rowling's imagination process, and they're just beautiful books for Harry Potter fans. And on top of that, I am almost past the Harry Potter section of this video, but I had to mention that the Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone book has been brought out in house editions. So I do have a copy of the Hufflepuff edition, but it is available in a Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Slytherin and Hufflepuff edition, each of which has extra bonus material pertaining to that house. So if you know somebody that affiliates himself with a certain Harry Potter house and would like a new copy of the Philosopher's Stone with a little bit of extra material, then that's also worth checking out. But moving away from Harry Potter, but still on the theme of things that in a way inspired the history of magic, I wanted to mention this gorgeous edition of the Greek and Roman Myths, a guide to the classical stories, published by Thames and Hudson. I mentioned this in relation to Harry Potter because, as I mentioned quite frequently this year, classics were a big inspiration behind Harry Potter, and lots of the elements of magic and characters' names in there, and J.K. Rowling herself studied classics. This book is not about Harry Potter, but if you know somebody in your life that enjoys magic or enjoys myths or ancient history, and I think a lot of us enjoy a ancient myth now and then this is a wonderful gift to give somebody. It takes you through many of the different myths of antiquity, as well as giving you little bits of history to go alongside those myths, showing you pieces of artwork that have survived depicting myths like this, and on top of that detailing classical receptions of certain myths, so perhaps in Renaissance art or modern literature. And I just think it's a beautiful, beautiful book for those who are already into their myths or are looking for somewhere to start and get acquainted with myths. I think you could give this to somebody of any age really. It's the kind of book I would have loved to receive sort of when I was the age of going into secondary school and getting into all of that kind of stuff. It's also available in a selection of different mythologies, so for example there's an Egyptian one, so if you know somebody that would prefer the Egyptian one then you can get them that, or the Celtic one you can get them that, or in fact you could get them a whole set, why not, they're beautiful. But from ancient stories to some more modern magical tales, I think in all of my previous gift guides I've mentioned some sort of fairy tale book. I think in part that's because fairy tales have quite a nostalgic feel for me, they're often packaged really beautifully and I think just make gorgeous gifts. In this year's gift guide I want to mention a modern fairy tale book, some new fairy tales to add to the canon, by Jen Campbell. This is her new book, The Beginning of the World in the Middle of the Night. This is a collection of short stories filled with varying levels of magical realism and, like I said, very much fairy tales for the modern day. Although they're full of magic and different worlds, they very much play on themes that are very relevant to people alive today, and they tackle some really heavy and important issues whilst just retaining some beautiful prose. So I just think this gorgeous naked hardback would make anybody happy unwrapping it. Look at that. Gorgeous. But if you want to give back with your bookish gift buying, I thought I should also mention Here I Stand by a selection of different young adult authors. This is published by Walker Books in collaboration with Amnesty International, and like I mentioned it's a collection of short stories, all of which are written by different authors dealing with very current political themes to do with human rights and things going on in the world, and they're incredibly inspiring for people of all ages. Again, like I mentioned, this is something you could give to a younger person in your life or an older person in your life. And not only that, all of the royalties from the sale of this book go to Amnesty International, which is an organisation that works to protect human rights across the world. And I think if you can buy somebody a gift that gives back to the world, it's all that more special. But on the topic of politics, I think a really lovely gift for somebody in your life may be Protest, Stories of Resistance, featuring again a wide array of different authors. Now, I think in the current political climate, a lot of us are looking for ways to get involved in politics. There's definitely been a surge in political activism from what I can tell. You know, voter turnout has risen in the UK, which is always a good thing, and this might be something for somebody in your life that's already political or is looking for a way to be more political or wants to know the history of political activism, because it's a collection of short stories, each of which tells a tale of a different protest from history, going all the way back to the peasant revolts of the 1300s to very recently with the Iraq War. Each one has a fictionalised story, but it also has a section telling the real history of what happened with that protest. So you get a little bit of history and fiction in there, and it's an inspiring read and a really nicely packaged book that I think would make a really nice gift for the right person. Going back again to the illustrated portion of this video with another illustrated work, and that is Travels with My Sketchbook by Chris Riddell. Chris Riddell has been the Children's Laureate in the past, and he is very well known for his children's books and his illustrations. He's illustrated some of his own books as well as other people's books, and I think this is just absolutely gorgeous for anybody that enjoys art or enjoys drawing or just enjoys an illustrated book. They don't have to be a drawer themselves, and it's absolutely full of all of Chris Riddell's beautiful, beautiful artwork. We've got some coloured ones, we've got some black and white ones, and it's just his time as Children's Laureate, him jotting down his thoughts in illustrated forms, the things he's getting up to, things he's observing in the world at the time, and beautifully illustrating them. And I think if you know somebody that is into art and illustration like I mentioned, or just enjoys a unique format of looking at someone's life and thoughts, and this is a gorgeous one to check out. Again, beautifully packaged book, which is always nice to unwrap, so I just think this one would be a gorgeous gift. But I couldn't do this video and not mention my next collection of books. Those are the new editions of the English translations of Tove Jansson's Moomin books. These are a collection of 4 different books following the Moomins, who are a collection of Finnish trolls. They have been around for quite a long time. They've been on television. The books have been out for many decades, and these are just some lovely new additions that would be perfect for somebody who already loves the Moomins, or you think would benefit from being introduced to the Moomins. We have Comet in Moominland, The Memoirs of Moomin Papa, Finn Family Moomin Troll, and I have to point out they are gorgeous all the way around. And lastly, Moominland Midwinter. Look at those beautiful illustrations. But lastly, for books that can be enjoyed by all ages, I had to mention the new book that just came out from Philip Pullman. It is a prequel to his Dark Materials, a very famous children's young adult series that came out in the 1990s, and it's made up of 3 books that very quickly made themselves classics. Now this, like I mentioned, is the prequel. It's the first in a new 3-part series Philip Pullman is writing, set at different times in the same world as his Dark Materials, and this one is set prior to the events of his Dark Materials. So if you know somebody that loved his Dark Materials, then this is definitely one to get them. But if you're also looking to introduce somebody to his Dark Materials, or just think they would love a beautiful new edition of one of their favourite series, then I had to mention this edition of Northern Lights, The Subtle Knife and The Amber Spyglass, the full trilogy, which is published by Everyman's Library. Like I mentioned, these books very quickly became classics. I also think there's something quite Christmassy about this book with the spine like that, and it's gorgeous all the way round. These are books set in a magical world, a lot like our own, but very different at the same time, where everyone has a magical demon that is very much a part of them. It is an animal that is constantly by their side that they are attached to, and everyone's demon is different. I won't say any more about the series, but I do think this is definitely one worth checking out if you know people that are fans of fantasy, if you know any younger readers that may benefit from being introduced to this wonderful series, or if you already know some fans that would like the latest installment. But I did say I would mention some non-book bookish gifts. Now for that I'm going to start with a pin company. Last year I mentioned the Literary Emporium, who do tons of literary gifts, including gorgeous enamel pins, and I showed a few of their pins in that video, so you can check them out in that video if you're interested, and I'll also link their website down below. But this year I discovered Thread Famous, and this is one of their pins here. I have actually been wearing this, but I put it back on the background cardboard here so you could see it, kind of how it comes packaged. And this pin I have is a quote from Percy Shelley: "Ye are many, they are few." And this comes in multiple different colours. I absolutely adore it. I have been wearing it, especially when I'm wearing red. It makes me feel very matchy, but I just think it's a gorgeous pin. It's not the only literary themed pin that Thread Famous does, however. There are various different authors' faces you can even get. Sylvia Plath is available, or she does other famous people like actors and singers, and I think if you know somebody that likes quirky little things like enamel pins, or has a favourite author or a favourite singer that the shop does, then it's a lovely gift. It's also really nice to support independent businesses around this time of year. In fact, she does even more than that. You can even get the faces of some politicians. I do myself have a Jeremy Corbyn pin, but I don't currently have it with me to show you. One of my other favourite types of literary gifts that I have gifted in the past are literary candles. I don't have any here to show you, but I've tried 2 companies in the past, both of which I think are absolutely amazing and based in different countries, so might be more useful to you depending on where you are. The first one is based in the UK, and it's Old Glow Candles on Etsy. I bought my friend Jill in the past 2 Lord of the Rings themed candles from their store, and they were absolutely wonderful, and she absolutely adored them, so I thought they might be worth mentioning here. The other one I've tried, however, is based in Australia, and that is Nook and Burrow. I tried their Nocturne Alley candle. They have quite a few Harry Potter themed candles, but there's also Alice in Wonderland themed candles, there's Game of Thrones themed candles, and non-literary candles too, as well as a selection of other different gifts on their website, so again might be worth checking out for their complete range, but in particular I wanted to mention their candles. And lastly, I wanted to mention a shop a little bit further out there, as it's not directly tied to books, but it is an independent online store that I discovered this year and absolutely adore, and think would definitely appeal to a lot of book lovers, as I think these two things seem to overlap with people, and it's a stationery shop. It's Stationery Closet. Stationery Closet is based in Scotland and sells a wide range of gifts, not just stationery, but obviously with a heavy emphasis on stationery, and their stuff is absolutely gorgeous. It's so cute. I just cannot describe to you how adorable it all is. I hauled some of it earlier this year. I'll link that video if you want to see a big selection of what I received, but you can check out their website. They have tons of stuff on there, gifts and stationery, and I just wanted to give them another little shout out here because I absolutely adored the stuff I got from their website. I did want to mention one last suggestion for bookish people this time of year that you might want to gift them, and those are literary subscriptions. I have two in mind that I wanted to recommend to you. The first one is to check out And Other Stories literary subscription. And Other Stories are an independent publishing house which publish translated fiction predominantly, and they published a wide array of different things from really exciting authors. I've loved a lot of their books in their past, and you can subscribe to them to receive one of their books every month depending on how long you sign up for. And you could equally do this for somebody in your life that you think would enjoy being introduced to a new book every month from a wonderful independent publisher, and each month is of course a surprise. For something a little bit more than book, the next subscription service I would recommend is one I've been introduced to recently, and that is Page Habit. The Page Habit is a new subscription service started by the people who own Quarterly, which is a quarterly book subscription box service, which of course I would also recommend, but Page Habit is a monthly subscription box, and what is particularly nice is you can pick from a wide array of genres to subscribe yourself or somebody else to. They have fantasy, science fiction, young adult, thriller, romance, literary fiction, and each month you will get one of their books which is annotated by the author, so you get that little bit of extra special content from subscribing to the subscription service, which I think is really nice to see what the author was thinking when they were writing the book. As well as this, you also get a selection of other little literary gifts along with it. And Other Stories is based out of the UK and Page Habit is based out of the US. So those are my literary subscription recommendations for this video. That is everything I decided I would mention in this video. I hope that I have given you some inspiration and some ideas for what to buy your bookish loved ones. You can always check out my previous gift guides, as all the gifts in those videos still stand and I'd still recommend them, so I will link them in the description box down below. There is quite a few now. I'd love to know if you have any other bookish gift recommendations or independent online shop recommendations. Perhaps other people will check them out in the comments down below, and I am always on the lookout for good gifts to buy people. I love gift shopping and I love this time of year for that, so there are a few people I haven't bought for yet if you want to help me out. Until next time though, happy reading and I'll see you all again soon. Bye!